How will this legal battle play out, and how could the Supreme Court vacancy affect this case? Let's discuss it with Andre Segura, a staff attorney at the ACLU, and Dan Stein, the president of Federation for American Immigration Reform, a nonprofit that favors restricting current immigration quotas. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being here. Dan, I want to start with you. You like and support the president's travel ban. You think he'll be victorious. Why?
Well, as a constitutional matter, the president enjoys very high deference. This is the zenith of his powers, as Jonathan Turley has said over and over again. Remember, the commander-in-chief here is responsible for public safety and national security. And historically, the idea that an Article III judge sitting in Seattle has the ability to second-guess national security judgments, or whether there are terrorists who may be infiltrating a refugee flow, arguing equal protection grounds, which is so absurd. The analogy would be for a federal judge to enjoin the bombing of, say, ISIS in Syria unless the government bombed Israel out of fundamental fairness. Protection at the same time. This is simply outside the competence of the judiciary to be second-guessing the president's judgment on a vital area to protect the American people and our public safety.
Okay.
And the same thing's true for this three-judge panel.
Yep, okay. Let me get Andre in here. He disagrees. You heard the argument. This is about national security, and that, pardon the pun, trumps everything.
Well, I think what we have to remember is when anyone says second guess, what we should be doing is second guessing the president when he attempts to institute a preference for certain religions or to disfavor certain religions. The president's authority over immigration is not unchecked. That is a myth. The judicial branch serves as a check, particularly when there is overreach. The president does not have authority to, for example, create a national religion. And the easiest way to do that is to prevent immigrants of certain faiths from entering this country.
But hold on one second, Andre. I want to stick with you because according to the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1952, I'll read an excerpt of it, whenever the president finds that the entry of any aliens, of any class of aliens, into the United States would be detrimental to the interests of the United States, he may, by proclamation, and for such period as he shall deem necessary, suspend the entry of all aliens. There you go.
And that is not without check. There are immigration laws that have been passed after that particular statute was passed that prevents discrimination, for example, on behalf of on national origin. So we have to be very careful about individuals who come out and say the president should receive absolute authority over all of this.
And I happen to have an excerpt of one of those pieces of legislation that has come out afterwards, and I want to pose this to you, Dan. Here is a portion of the 1965 Immigration Act. No person shall receive any preference or priority or be discriminated against in the issuance of an immigrant visa because of the person's race, sex, nationality, place of birth, or place of residence. How is the travel ban not a violation of that, Dan?
Well, that's not intended to actually influence the selection criteria that Congress passes or the broad authority the president has to determine refugee admissions. That's about preventing discrimination arbitrarily in processing applications as a ministerial matter.
Okay.
That's a complete corruption of the idea. Because in the end, look, our refugee policy is about protecting people on the basis of, among other things, religious persecution.
Yeah.
So you have to make distinctions on the basis of religion. Obama was not admitting people from Syria as refugees for most of his administration, only in the last 2 terms. All of a sudden, the ACLU is claiming it's an establishment of religion to say that you want to give some preference to Christians in the Middle East because they've been discriminated against by a prior administration. That is the most ridiculous thing anybody's ever heard.
Go ahead, Andre.
What's ridiculous is not listening to the president's words and intent and the effect of this order. This is establishing this is disfavoring people of the Muslim faith and placing a preference over other individuals. This is fundamental to the United States.
Facially neutral. There's nothing about this order that singles out Muslims.
This is facially unconstitutional, and you have to look at the intent. The president's words matter, and you have to look at the intent behind the president's words.
You're playing into ISIS's hands when you call it a Muslim ban. It's not a Muslim ban. Why are you playing into ISIS's hands by distorting the intention of this executive order?
Let's be honest about this, Dan. This is originally what the president said that he planned to do. This is what Rudy Giuliani said he was tasked with doing, coming up with something that would be a Muslim ban. There's a reason that people think this is a Muslim ban.
Look, Judge Hobart was looking at the facial terms of the executive order. It doesn't say anything about a Muslim ban. The judge didn't even give Washington State what it was asking for. He gave it far more than it was asking for. This entire ban was nothing like Washington State ever dreamed of. And, you know, the ACLU wasn't anywhere to be found when President Obama was letting in hundreds of thousands of aliens without any legal authority, putting them in our schools, hospitals, housing. They don't seem to think the civil rights of Americans matter in controlling immigration. And these Silicon Valley outfits, they're not affected in any substantial way by the president's temporary suspension to improve vetting from countries that are failed states and cannot verify the identity of the people we are admitting. This is important prudential executive authority, and it need not be tampered with by the judiciary.
Go ahead, Andre. I mean, you heard that there's no language about this being a particularly Muslim ban in the executive order.
Sure, and I would say first, as a lawyer, when you engage in that sort of rhetoric, you know you have a losing argument. So when you have to resort to such fear tactics about immigrants coming in and overcrowding, you know you're losing the argument here. But the president's words matter. He was very clear. He wants to institute a Muslim ban, and this is his way through his advisors. We heard from Rudy Giuliani recently. This is the way that they were going to do it.
But you also hear from his advisors right now saying, look, there are all sorts of Muslim majority countries that are not included in this. These are just the terror-prone countries that had already been identified by President Obama.
Well, this goes directly to another point. There is a complete mismatch with this executive order and what it purports to do, which is keep Americans safe. This is a very limited subset of countries, does not include several other countries who would potentially be on any terror-related list.
Very quickly, Andre, what's going to happen here? Is this going to go to the Supreme Court?
I think it will get up to the Supreme Court very quickly. We do not know how fast the Ninth Circuit will act.
Dan, what's going to happen? Do you think it will go to the Supreme Court? And given their 4-4 split, what happens?
There's no question the president has to win. It's terrifying, this whole order, the idea that the president can't protect the public safety and national security. Absolutely, he's going to win.
Okay, Dan, Andre, thank you very much for the debate.